Welcome, welcome to the Kinexx Investor Webinar. It is my pleasure. My name is Adrian Mohammed. I serve as the manager for Kinexx Modular Construction, Inc. With me, and we have the pleasure of introducing to you all someone I'm extremely proud to say is not just a co-founder in this business and the visionary behind even the business model, but I say in all humility, maybe one of the sharpest architects certainly in the United States and possibly even the world when it comes to modular. When it comes to someone being researched, applied expertise, in many respects, I like to share with the team that we're all building Paul's company, right? We're grateful for him and to understand this business. Frankly, you couldn't have a better person to share the foundational vision, strategy, business model, and goals of Kinexx. So with that, I ask you all to join me in welcoming Paul Tebben.
Adrian, thank you. Adrian flatters me. I find this to be this really fantastic in ever-changing learning process. And so one of the attitudes that we hold dear at Kinexx is this idea of continuous improvement. And so one of the most amazing things about what we do is the fact that we're never done. We're never finished. There's always something new to learn, to grow. And this moment in time really kind of embodies that. So I wanted to start today with a quick origin story. I think every kind of novel system, novel product originates with a very clear problem statement. And in architecture school years and years ago, somebody much smarter than myself said that if you have an incredibly clear problem statement that you have designed, researched, tested, the problem is halfway solved. And so the origin story will kind of cover how Kinexx came to be, what that problem statement is, how that translated into the solution, and then I'll go over modular construction as a follow-up to that. Modular is a word that is very vast, and so I'll kind of position Kinexx on that spectrum of what people understand to be modular. I think squash some of the skepticisms around that word, and then open it up for questions. That's the most exciting part. We want everybody to kind of come to the table, and we want to shed some of the mystery of this word modular as it grows as a kind of rapidly evolving industry. So I'll just start first. I'm not going to flip through a lot of slides, but I want to start first with a video. It's a 3-minute video. It covers our process kind of from beginning to end as it stands today. I'll follow up with that origin story, but this is the lead into that. So if you'll bear with me for one moment. Okay, thank you for indulging me. I always find that it's very meaningful to provide the lens through which the audience can understand a presentation. And so when we say words like modular, and you'll hear me say prefabrication, modular, manufactured, words that carry a lot of historical stigmas, I wanted you to understand what we mean by it. And so that video does, we think, does quite a good job of doing that. Get back to the presentation. So a quick origin story. Kinexx, like I mentioned, all good ideas come from kind of reframing existing contexts and finding a clear problem statement. And so for us and the founding team, it was the realization or the kind of understanding after working many years in the city of Chicago that more than 70% of the residential lots were almost identically sized. And that's a product of historical zoning. Chicago is a great example, but it's not the only city. Most legacy cities have a version of the Chicago narrow lot, which is the 25 by 125 foot lot. And so in an environment like that, with a residential lot that is so predictable within inches across the entire city, coupled with the understanding that there are these massive gaps in all of these legacy neighborhoods, these wonderful neighborhoods, rich with history, rich with culture, but there are these missing teeth on all of these residential blocks. And those predominantly happen in underserved neighborhoods. And so for us, there was a very clear problem. There was this need to reinvigorate existing neighborhoods. There was this context which was extremely predictable, and then there was a problem, and the problem is, it's no mystery to anyone here. This massive and ever growing housing gap. We know that the conventional construction models that we know have been inefficient with keeping up with that gap. They haven't closed it, and they've been slow to keep up with it. And so, like one of my favorite engineers of the 20th century, Buckminster Fuller, said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." So here we have this really predictable context. We have this really rich and meaningful problem, and the existing model doesn't solve the problem. And so for us, that was the problem statement. How do we create a new model, something novel, that doesn't reinvent the wheel, but instead kind of activates existing technologies and reframes how we look at something. And so Kinexx became the answer to that very clear problem statement for us. And modular as a whole, being launched in a city like Chicago was also very, very meaningful to us, because it as a city, it represents the tightest body of constraints. You have, I think, the second most stringent building code in the country. You have narrow lots. You have a lot of infill scattered site conditions. You have tight alleys, tight streets. And so the delivery of modular that would otherwise be easy on a big wide suburban lot becomes very challenging. And so our thought was, if we can do it in Chicago, and if we can solve for this process, and it is very much a process, not a product. If we can do it in Chicago, logic would say that we can translate that formula quite easily elsewhere, other urban markets, and of course anything suburban or rural becomes that much easier. So I'm going to get into the presentation. I won't make the group here read all of our text, but I think we consider Kinexx a very, very powerful process. Just like Henry Ford automated and industrialized the manufacturing of the automobile industry, offsite modular as a whole, and Kinexx specifically within that, becomes this really efficient engine, and it's through the lens of manufacturing, precision manufacturing, as opposed to legacy stick-built construction. the problem statement that I mentioned is, again, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but because it's so obvious to most people on this webinar. This housing gap. So it's nationwide. Chicago is a microcosm of what is a much larger national problem. But effectively, the housing stock, the new construction pace and the volume is less now than it was in the 1960s, and yet the demand is much higher. Pair that with ever increasing real estate costs. Chicago being another great example. Most recently, as recently as a month ago, it was reported that it was prices were 5x the national average. So the idea of a starter home for most young people, young families, has become a kind of a thing of the past. And so the ability to kind of begin that wealth building process through one's life at an early age has gone from early 20s to now 40 years old, which is a massive problem. So why offsite modular? Modular is a precision process, and so what we find very attractive about it as a solution to the housing problem is the conversion of what would otherwise be a whole set of variables in standard construction to a set of very controlled and predictable constants. This idea that you can take things like subcontractor delays, material unavailability, weather, to name just a few of what most have experienced as a long list of variables. The conversion of the variables to constants becomes the superpower of the offsite modular world. Speed is it goes without saying that speed is one of the huge advantages, but speed and profitability, speed and budget walk hand in hand. So the ability for us to build in volume, build very quickly so that developers are able to receive more or enjoy more turnover cycles on their money, reduce their carrying costs for financed funds, is a massive advantage. The project delivery is essentially it's a lot smarter. We don't claim for modular or prefab to be the magic bullet that solves every problem in the construction industry, but the intelligent use of the various components of that process and doing it off-site where you can control the process, quality control it at many checkpoints throughout that process becomes much more intelligent and leverages data in a way that legacy construction cannot do. So ease and simplicity, forward-thinking strategies, obviously, but effectively controlling quality over speed is the superpower. And we would argue that with Kinexx, agility is right up there on that list. So I want to take a pause. For most people have heard the word modular. They understand what parts of what modular means, what manufactured means. But we have to understand what it is not in order to understand it. And so what is stick-built construction? We say modular versus stick-built as we compare kind of the traditional construction model to our manufactured housing model. And we compare it to stick-built because stick-built is the way that we've all grown up accustomed to. So stick-built is a traditional method where buildings are constructed piece by piece on site. You've all seen this. You've driven by sites where your brand new subfloors and studs sit in the elements, and they're warping in the rain and the snow. They're sitting there for long periods of time with inactivity. There are problems with labor availability, skilled labor. There are delays caused by the scheduling of those trades. Material deliveries come right to the site. They're often very wasteful, especially in the rough stages where a pallet of 2x4s will be delivered and instantly 10% of that is thrown in the garbage because they're warped or unusable. By contrast, modular construction, and what we consider to be precision offsite modular is the actual term, is a building method where large modules are manufactured offsite in a controlled factory setting and then transported and assembled on site. So what that allows us to do is build homes like one would build an automobile. It is, and what I mean by that is the product, the physical element that the team is building is what moves. The people stay put, the materials stay put, the tools stay put, and so the labor efficiency is much better. The ability for, instead of somebody carrying a sheet of drywall up 3 floors, they're carrying it 4 feet, and so all of the principles of human movement and optimizing every micro kind of task and step. It makes it a lot faster, a lot more efficient, and a much higher quality. Modular can mean many things, and so to us it means a manufactured assembly line. There are other modular competitors that employ what we call construction indoors, where effectively teams of people are carrying carts of materials and tools to a bunch of different products that sit stationary. We find the manufactured mindset to open up a lot more, as I mentioned, efficiency, but also opportunities for us to diagnose problems, to diagnose bottlenecks, to diagnose any sort of problems with a slowdown of a certain type of module, or any number of challenges or opportunities where we find to optimize. We can locate that and instantly zero in on a specific station as that moves through. It also allows us to have quality control checks at the handoff of modules from one station to the next. So as it leaves the electrical station and moves to the plumbing station, there is a moment where the entire module is reviewed by both the delivering team lead and then the receiving team lead. But when people say modular, it can mean many of these things. It can mean volumetric, meaning boxes full of air. It can mean components like panels or plumbing trees. And oftentimes those can be used in unison, which is where we fall, which is kind of a hybrid kit of parts. So we build the boxes when it makes sense. We build the flat pack components where we need more agile kind of spaces. So really quickly, and I want to leave enough time for questions, but modular is typically understood as something mobile. People have seen manufactured houses kind of rolling down the highway. Offsite modular, the precision modular that we build is just another manner or means by which we can build a home. So it's a permanent home. It's locked to permanent foundations. It's made of steel. It is effectively more robust structurally, holds up much better to corrosion and insects. It has a building envelope that exceeds energy code minimums, and so we're rather than mobile and temporary and low quality, we're actually much higher quality, much more robust structurally, and we perform. The building performs over the life cycle of itself much better in terms of maintenance and operating costs. Another misconception is that it depreciates. So one would think of a trailer home or something on a chassis that doesn't hold value. It depreciates like an automobile. We're a really, really well-built home fixed to foundation. So it not only appreciates like a home, it appreciates better than most stick-built equivalents. And then finally, the one that I'm an architect by trade, I should have mentioned that to begin with, is that modular is ugly. And I think that there is an unfair stigma that modular has a certain look. We designed Kinexx to be this chameleon, this agnostic, really hyper designed interior space plan system and delivery model, but it's stylistically agnostic. So the building can receive any number of external materials, interior materials. It can have different roof lines. It can have different window patterns. And so we really find that agility to adapt to neighborhood contexts really powerful and necessary, because what is right for one neighborhood is not right for another neighborhood, and what is right for one city is certainly not right for another. So speed, quality control, cost, certainty, sustainability, labor dependence. So all of those are absolutely superior in the modular world as compared to stick built. And so, usually the mantra is quality, schedule, budget. You get to pick two. Modular kind of rewrites that formula and allows for a buyer to achieve superior quality over speed and maintain costs without escalation. So the schedule is predictable, the cost is predictable, the quality is superior. The cost structure, I'll go through these next slides reasonably quickly here. So the cost structure is absolutely controllable. We have the benefit of designing everything before, down to how many screws we put into the building before any of those screws go into the project, right? So we understand exactly what the materials will cost overall. We understand the labor costs. Those materials are purchased up front, so we can control those costs on the front end. And then obviously, you compare that to if anybody's been through construction of a home or a larger development, that cost structure varies and is a constantly moving target with change orders, which I can proudly say that we have been, we've been around for some time, and our change order list I could count on one hand. And then obviously savings, the time savings. I think it's not, the offsite model. It doesn't just allow us to build much faster, and I say much faster because that's down to sometimes 1 to 2 homes per week out of our factory. But it also allows us to overlap the site construction with the work happening in the factory. And so excavation, foundation, underground plumbing can be happening in tandem with the work that's happening in our factory. And to compound that, the work that's happening in our factory can work in parallel oftentimes with the permit review process for projects with a lower risk profile. Quality assurance, we have quality checkpoints at almost 15 moments throughout our fabrication process. We leverage digital fabrication. So we have, this is an image on the left of a steel delivery. These are custom rolled for us, cut and punched. And so there's no cutting. There's just kind of erector set assembling through a very controlled method. But it leaves us with very little waste. So the role of the manufacturing model is to take as much of the measuring out of the process as possible. And so very clear drawings, very clear lead-offs for our fabrication team. But it is an assembly process, much less so than it is cutting rough members into usable pieces. I mentioned earlier about, and I want to stop here for just a moment. We understand our process to yield multiple kind of delivery models. And so what I mean by that is our if you imagine an assembly line that starts at rough materials, sticks and panels on one end and ends with a finished home on the site on the other, there are these very meaningful touch points along that process. And so that allows us to turn those sticks and panels into wall, ceiling, floor, roof panels that can be sold independently as a product in their own right. There is a core and shell, so that becomes a box that is a skeleton, which is very meaningful for seasoned contractors that just want to get under roof and weather enclosed quickly. That box then takes on all of the rough end for mechanical and electrical and plumbing. And so that becomes kind of a vanilla box that is a finish ready product, which just leaves kind of final interior and exterior finishes for a contractor on site, a third party contractor in that case, or the turnkey model, which we've done quite a bit of in the Chicago market, where we wear all the hats and we're the manufacturer, the architect of record, and the general contractor of record. So it effectively, this is the fun part, it effectively turns it into kind of full-scale Lego blocks or building blocks. Our modules are designed to be smaller than the average modular builder, and that's I think what makes us incredibly unique. We have very deterministic module design. So we'll have one that is dedicated to it's a 2-bathroom module or a kitchen module, and so they become this kit of parts when you pair those with some of the other 2-dimensional components that we prefabricate. It becomes this kit of parts that can yield nearly anything from small single-family homes, 1 and 2 story, to duplexes, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, small multifamily up to larger multifamily, townhomes, et cetera, using the same manufacturing platform and the same components. So we find that, and why I say this is fun, this is the nerd architect in me speaking here now. It really is this sort of childlike process that allows us to take, these sort of very diverse set of criteria from our clients and find these really interesting solutions without changing anything about how we build. And so we really enjoy when someone comes to us to test the agility of our system, because we haven't, we get to flex the muscles of what it can really do. So as I mentioned, the panel kits, the core and shell kits, these are the 4 we just saw graphically, the vanilla boxes with rough end, and then the turnkey, all become kind of primary delivery models, and each one satisfies a different need, a different geographic reach, and there are shades of gray within that. So, so there is optionality within this too. I think everybody thinks that modular is you sort of get what you get. What we try to sort of, or what we endeavor to do with our clients, is to bring them through a process where we're sort of steering from the large decisions down to the smaller decisions. And so there's a lot of pre-curated finished packages for clients that don't really want to make all those kind of granular decisions. So we've put a lot of time into the interior and exterior design of our buildings and all of that optionality. But we have a lot of levers to pull, from what unit type to kind of what, bedroom, bathroom count, what type of delivery model, what style are we looking to do. And so what it yields is what would be if somebody did 20 scattered site lots in a neighborhood. All 20 of those could be the identical unit design, and all 20 of those could look like completely different buildings on the exterior and on the interior, quite frankly. So these are just a sampling of some of the single family homes that we've done recently in the city of Chicago. The variety of different roof lines, different material packages. This is a small sampling, but a sampling nonetheless. The interchangeability of the modules this is a kind of a silly sketch, but it kind of gets to what we're talking about, where we have this massive kit of parts, this library that we've engineered, that then we can assemble and reassemble for any product market fit. Our homes are agile once the full design of the home is also able to be, most of our single families are able to be duplexed or set in quad configurations. And then one of the really cool advantages of modular in the way that we do it in particular is the expandability. And so someone wants to get in a kind of entry level home with a future kind of master plan to expand at a later date when funds are replenished. And so it's a unitized system, and so it allows for that. So really quickly, and then I'm going to get to the questions. Weather resilience. Obviously, we don't deal with weather. We need one clear day to deliver a home. It takes about 5 hours. And so once we get it on site, it's weather tight within 5 hours, and then obviously we continue the work on site, but it doesn't have any bearing on our schedule. Reduced waste, as I mentioned before. The energy performance is something that goes kind of overlooked in modular. We are, as I mentioned, the building envelope is much tighter. The materials never see a drop of water. They are able to be delivered solar ready. And just as a sort of active and passive strategy design, it is far superior to most typical equivalent builds in the residential market. And then finally, labor efficiency. For every man hour worked, it's a much higher output because there's fewer setups, fewer breakdowns of tools, very limited and very safe conditions where they're working on a 3rd-story module 6 inches off the ground in our factory, which goes into this, obviously. So I'm gonna pause. There's more slides, but I want to get to the questions because I find that to be the richest part of these. Let's get to the first one. My team is feeding me some of the questions. I hope to get to as many as possible. So the video shows no structural steel, just light gauge. How many stories are you comfortable with? We're currently building a 4-story multifamily in Chicago that we're really excited about, and we are in the process of developing a 7-story. We're in schematic design for a 7-story. So cold form steel, what you're calling light gauge, is capable of going up much higher than 7 actually, but we're taking very measured steps in that. So we've built 2 stories, we've built 3 stories, we're now building a 4-story, and we're targeting 7 stories. And you're right, there's no heavy steel in our products. One of our first prototypes we built with a heavy steel cage, and in our ever growing process to continuously improve, we pivoted to cold form. One, because it's very manageable. It's very we can digitally fabricate it. It's much less wasteful, and it's much more efficient per material weight structurally. So question 2, are you building anywhere other than Chicago? So we are building in we were sort of born out of Chicago. Our launch to market was Chicago for the reasons I stated earlier. We understood how to navigate Chicago, but it also represented the kind of the most stringent challenge for us that we thought would yield flexibility downstream, which it has. So we've built predominantly in the Chicago market. This crowdfund raise stages us to get into 8 other legacy cities, and so we were very careful not to expand too quickly. We wanted to understand our own system. We wanted to give ourselves the benefit of learning in iteration by building many in Chicago. And so now we feel like it's the responsible time for us to go into those other urban markets. Somebody asked, it seems to be a lot of companies saying they're modular now. What distinguishes Kinexx? So Kinexx is if you look up the list of those modular companies, you will find next to 0 that are operating in urban markets with any sort of volume. And the reason is these narrow lots, these scatter site conditions, the tight streets of urban markets, it goes counter to how most modular companies are set up. Our modules, as I mentioned before, are much smaller. They're more agile. They can be pulled 2 at a time on a semi-trailer, but they also can be pulled 1 at a time with a pickup truck. And so I think you saw in the video, we've delivered from skinny 16-foot alleys as a result of that. And so I think we are what others see as kind of a challenge to their pro forma. We've abstracted it down to a manufacturing setup, and so we can deliver these small modules. So 10 scattered site lots looks the same to us as 10 lots next to each other. Whereas for other modular builders that actually have 16-foot wide by 40-foot modules, it's really difficult to navigate those streets, and the cost structure typically doesn't work. So the next question, for your standard Chicago builds, what is your average all-in cost, hard cost, site cost, prep foundation per foot or per unit? We get asked this all the time, and it's a really difficult question. I think modular construction follows the same rules as stick-built construction in very few ways, but one of them is 1,000, or let's say a 1,600 3-bed 2-bath home built as a ranch is going to have a much higher cost per square foot than that same 1,600 stacked 800 on top of 800. The foundations are half as large, the roof is half as large. So I think the cost per square foot is is extremely variable from our small single families up to our townhomes and in smaller multifamily. And so what we encourage people to do is actually reach out, select 3 or so unit designs in our catalog. We have the ability to turn around real pricing on those in less than a week. And so we find that to be a much more responsible way to answer that question. Question 5, with Baltimore being a prime market for your 25-foot modular system, is there a projected timeline for officially entering and delivering modules to the Baltimore market? There's not a hard timeline. We are anxious to get there. Largely, we are, this crowd fundraise is a tool by which we get there. And so we'd like to be there in under 24 months. We'd like to be there, in under 18 months. But there are a lot of variables there. So we're working very hard to get there. Next question. It was mentioned that you have commitments to land in Chicago. Which neighborhood is this land located? The Bronzeville neighborhood, you may have heard, the people that are not from Chicago would have heard this most recently with all the coverage of the dedication of the Obama Library that was built adjacent to a massive residential neighborhood called Bronzeville, which is really quickly growing as far as property value, and there's been development kind of on all sides, kind of closing in on Bronzeville, and now it's becoming one of the next hottest neighborhoods in Chicago. For the 8 additional cities you've identified for expansion, is Kinexx actively looking to form strategic partnerships with local developers or landowners in those markets right now? If so, what does your ideal partner profile look like? Adrian, if you're on, that would be a good, you would be really well staged to answer that question if you're able to hop on.
Can you hear me, Paul?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Absolutely. Partnerships are the way that we are going to achieve scale in this business. The pipeline, so that the challenge with Kinexx from a business model standpoint has always been, our strength has been, our greatest weakness. We build very fast. We build very efficiently, as you've heard earlier from Paul. The system is extremely fluid and very flexible. He likes to use the analogy of a chameleon. It could become almost anything. That's a challenge because you have to maintain discipline in a business. And so learning to focus and to prioritize the areas where we're good at is where we want to be and stay. And in those areas where we can extend value, as long as that value is reciprocated with pipeline, right? It makes sense for us to form these partnerships. And so, yes, if you're in any of these markets, feel free to reach out to us directly via info@. But yes, ultimately, at the end of the day, we do need to stress the point that capital drives our ability to expand operationally, to expand the production capacity at the plant, and to expand in markets. And when we grow and build in those markets, it'll be through strategic partnerships with developers and other local partners, government, nonprofit, et cetera. But thank you very much for that question.
Great, Adrian. Thank you. That was the that is one of the key questions that we're working with. I think that we understand and through the development of our business from a very early, almost from its inception, it's a very humbling process. It requires it's not a one-man show. It's not a one-team show. It is a trial by fire, leveraging the very specific specialties of many people, and so that extends out to our expansion strategy as well. Question 8: what do you envision will be the future of modular construction? So I think the future of modular construction is hybrid. I think the market, if you look at other continents, Europe, Asia, South America, they're much further ahead of the U.S. in leveraging the technology. And so there, if you really study it, which I'm a nerd, so I have, the first move is to make a bunch of boxes. The boxes come together, they make a building. There are opportunities there, and we've leveraged those opportunities in our volumetric product line really well, we feel. But there are limits as well. So if you volumetric modular building boxes does really well and is incredibly impactful when you're doing things in repetition. So imagine a group living facility or a dormitory where you have a lot of rooms that are the same and unitized and kind of repeating throughout a footprint. But you also need those very large communal spaces. You need the big living spaces you need. And so the hybrid model becomes the answer to that. That's how you take one system that has limitations and transition it into an incredibly agile system that can take on nearly any form. So I see modular evolving into a hybrid strategy. We're tracking that and really developing our system to meet those demands. Question 9, where is your production plant located? Size and scale of build. How many units can you fabricate at a time? So we have just under 70,000 square feet on the south side of Chicago, not far from Midway Airport. It is an old steel manufacturing building. It is the video that you watched earlier was our previous facility, which was very useful for us as a growing company. Our current facility can do 8x that. So comfortably, we can produce about 1,000 homes a year out of that facility. So, I mentioned at a very kind of reasonable, moderate pace on a single production line with one shift, we can do 1 to 2 homes or 1 to 2 dwelling units per week. That can amplify quite a bit to get to 1,000 home output out of that one facility. The exterior walls and floor roof are those cavities filled with sprayed-in insulation. So it's a very strategic envelope. The roof panels are a open cell spray foam. The wall panels are cavity insulation, back cavity insulation with a continuous layer of rigid insulation. So you get that as a continuous wrapper around the entire building. And so the floors are not insulated. We insulate around the perimeter of the foundation and up through the perimeter walls and roof. But volumetric modular, the way we build it has this other really great, you didn't ask about acoustics, but I'm going to answer anyway. This really great kind of byproduct, which we understood early on and have kind of used it as well as we can. Anybody that's lived in a multifamily building, and I can speak from experience with 2 young kids living in a second floor condo, my young children being woken up, so that your neighbor above is walking on their floor. Their floor structure it also supports your ceiling. And so you hear every step and you hear every dog bark and it's the sound transmission is a big problem in multifamily, but also in single family. So because every box we build has its own ceiling and floor, when you put another on top, you have an independent ceiling system under an independent floor system. And so we've had ribbon cuttings where we have 25 people in a master bedroom above the living room, and when you're standing in the living room, you can't hear anything. So the insulation is superior as far as the tightness of the insulation, the continuous wrapper, going back to your envelope question, and it's as far as air infiltration, it mitigates that very well and exceeds energy code requirements. Can you discuss existing orders? How many units are currently in the pipeline? When will they be delivered, and what does the next 12 months look like? So we have these really kind of great, this really great diversity of work right now. We have municipal clientele that is, we're just finishing 2 pilot programs in 2 different Chicago neighborhoods, Chicago suburbs, forgive me. that are the gateway to hundreds of units in those areas. We have that as one tier of the business. We have the multifamily projects, and then we have a lot of mixed residential. So we have the multifamilies are great because they're a lot of volume, but very low administrative costs because it's one project team, one development team per 32 units versus orders of 5 to 10 where you have those teams in multiples. And then we have the mixed residential developments in Northwest Indiana and throughout Chicagoland. Speak to multiple projects, single family, multiple cities. Somebody asked about the versatility. So I think we're really excited about the future of this company. Quite frankly, we think that the formula that we've developed, the agility for our system to address a huge range of product market fits with a variety of unit types we can fabricate in a precision manner. It translates incredibly well without much adjustment to other markets. We get asked all the time about, can you build in New York? Can you build in Florida? The wind loads are stronger. It's minor adjustments to a really robust system that enables us to do that. And as we grow, our business model gets smarter. We don't just replicate our facility. We don't replicate what we're doing under one roof in Chicago. We fragment it to a hub and spoke model that allows for us to solve for the transportation and the logistic challenges of shipping boxes full of air to other cities. So we've done the legwork, we've done the research to get into these other cities. We understand that there is an overwhelming need for the houses, and we've solved for our way to get into those markets, and so we're really excited to do that. So I think I'm sorry, there's one more question. Can you invest a minimum? So I think I would encourage everybody to read the investment docs. So the minimum is only $500, and obviously we welcome institutional investors beyond that number. But our whole strategy with the development of this company at large was to democratize housing for everybody, and so we are taking that same attitude towards this investment platform. We want to democratize the investment into what we feel to be an incredibly meaningful solution to a really difficult challenge in our country. I think we are closing in on the end of the webinar. I want to. Looks like the questions have. I don't see any more coming in. We want to thank everybody. Adrian, I'll let him. He opened. I'll let him close. But I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for your interest. This is not just an investment into a company. We feel and we believe that it's an investment into solving a problem that is socially impactful at the largest level. So with that, thank you. I'll give it back to Adrian.
Thank you, Paul. We're on time, but again, thanks for the education. There's a lot around this crowd campaign, athletes and media, and but sometimes just understanding the blocking and tackling of this business is important. Thanks for laying that foundation for us. Couldn't be prouder of this company and its dexterity and its passion and perseverance against incredible trial. Really happy to see the response, not just in finance, but in a lot of the inspirational words we're hearing around the country now as we engage in conversation about this business. We invite you all to join us. Thank you again for participating in this webinar. There'll be future ones coming up. Do stay tuned. If you didn't get your question answered, feel free to send a note to info@kinexxbills.com. Thank you all.
Thank you.